Hey all, here at OS Reviews. Today we're taking a quick look at the Helloganss HS75T. This is a wireless mechanical keyboard that is relatively compact, has a lot of different customizable themes that you can pick between. All the keycaps are replaceable, even the switches claim to be hot-swappable. It also has a few controls, including a rotatable knob, which you can use to change things like volume, as well as customize it even with a companion app on the computer. It also comes with packages that you can pick between Gatoron and Cherry MX switches, including options like silver, brown, red, yellow for Gatoron switches, and for Cherry MX you can pick between blue, brown, red. All of those will give you slightly different force needed to activate the switch and get you a slightly different experience, but you can change between whether you want something more clicky and tactile versus something which is more quiet, more linear. It is of course an RGB keyboard, so you're able to change all the lighting effects, whether from the keyboard itself or again using the companion app. You can remap all the controls. You can use it with Bluetooth 2.4G with a USB dongle or using it as a wired keyboard. Bluetooth mode also allows you to connect up to 5 devices at once and has a 4000 mAh capacity battery. The keyboard itself also has a sound absorbing layer inside. It's not going to rattle or produce any extra noise when you're typing, and depending on the configuration in terms of switch option, you can find it for around $100. Inside we have just the keyboard itself. We have kind of the all black version, keycap remover, so you can easily swap out the switches and the caps and replace them or wash them. And you also have access to just the standard USB Type-C cable if you want to charge the keyboard or use it in a wired mode. Last but not least, a quick user guide along with a USB Type-C to full-size Type-A adapter comes included. Taking a closer look at the design here, as aforementioned, we have the all-black version, which doesn't necessarily jump out at you, but overall still has a very compact frame and looks clean. We have access to a polycarbonate build, at least on the outside, and then again, they do claim there is some shock-absorbing, sound-absorbing rubber bumpers on the inside. Otherwise, it looks pretty discreet, along with, again, that interesting 5-way navigational toggle, dial, which you can use to actually rotate to change the volume, also remap to other things. It can also be pressed down as well. And on the other side, we have access just to the Helloganss logo and a switch that you can press to change it between power off, aka wired mode. You can also change it to the nano receiver mode, as well as go into the Bluetooth connection mode, Type-C port there on the side, preventing it from sliding around on a surface or a desk. And you also have some elevated feet that you can use to pop up to type at a more comfortable angle, and more importantly, underneath the feet is where you'll find access to the storage of the nano receiver. So if you want to plug it into a computer that doesn't have Bluetooth, you can also use this mode instead. So overall, again, a very clean design, but nothing necessarily that jumps out too much unless you start pulling out the keycaps and changing the colors and accents. Here is what the keyboard looks like once we have it turned on. You can see the RGB lights start to dance, especially on the jog dial. It's not necessarily the brightest backlight, which is pretty much the norm for these mechanical keyboards. You can still make it out if there is a little bit of light around you, and more prominently, if you're in the dark, it becomes easier to see. And it also breathes and pulses a little bit here for the volume knob, which does look pretty clean and attractive. So going through some of the options here, you can actually tap on function up and down to basically change the brightness level, but we are already at the max level here at the moment. But you can also go down to minimize it or turn the lights completely off, and the controls for the two accent lights here are done separately from the main keyboard deck. We can also change function left and right to change the speed of the animations from going really fast to slowing down. This wheel on the side, you can also change the color by tapping on function, enter, and R. That will actually go from single colored mode to slowly going into a rainbow effect that will pulse and change the colors accordingly. The keycaps themselves, they're decent, but they don't necessarily shine through. The letters don't necessarily glow in the dark, but that's a common theme we've seen across many of these keyboards, but just something to keep in mind. But otherwise, we can also go into, say, a single colored mode if you prefer, as well as a reactive mode, which will kind of shine a light for a few seconds when you're typing and then slowly fade away after you're done, and then it will go back into this single colored mode. So other effects, if we tap on function 2, it will glow in this ripple-like pattern across a rainbow. There's going to be one that goes up and down instead. So some of these effects we have seen in the past, but nonetheless they still are very attractive looking and definitely gives it a pretty cool effect if you are using it at night, as well as kind of a conversation starter that just sets it apart. This first one here is a little bit more of a rainbow colored effect. Someone here that goes a little bit more slowly. You can also pick between Function F4 goes into another reactive mode, but it will bounce across the entire keyboard, as you can see there, versus reacting to a single row as you're typing. This one here is pretty fun as far as interacting with each other, but what I will say is it may not be the most practical if you are typing always in the dark, because it's going to make the other keys a little harder to see, but nonetheless an interesting effect. F5 here will go into more of this crazy colorful candy effect. One here that ripples off from the center, which I think also looks quite good. Going into kind of a breathing mode, which will oscillate between the colors slowly. And again into F6, we will be able to go back and forth into some other transition effects, which again may not be the most practical, but still is pretty cool to see these other types of ripple patterns that you're able to try out. And otherwise, we can tap into F7. This is kind of the final option that we have, and F7 really isn't changing the effect of the transitions anymore, but rather is changing the colors of the lights one at a time. So you're able to have that level of granularity. For instance, I can change all the colors through all of the animation modes that we've seen into a single color that we prefer based on your preferences. Of course, you're not limited by these transition effects. Using the companion app, you can unlock even more modes, such as custom ones where you can change the colors underneath each keycap individually. You have that level of granularity, plus the ability to also backlit only certain regions of the keyboard. For instance, if you're gaming, you can only light up this part to help remind you and give you a better experience. All of that you can also fine-tune based on your liking. So it just highlights certain keys based on what mode you're trying to use the keyboard in. So overall, I think the RGB lighting effects are done quite well because of the variety of options that we have on here. You don't really get a reactive mode, so there is no built-in microphone necessarily, but aside from that, everything else is highly customizable. So overall, in terms of the experience, I have to say it is very satisfying. So if we kind of remove this, you can see the switch underneath is that aforementioned kind of silver color, which, by the way, it's my first time testing out a silver switch keyboard. It's similar to red switches in that they are linear and there's no real tactile bump, and they're a lot more quiet with a consistent keystroke when you're pressing down, which makes them quite good for things like typing as well as gaming in general. However, they also activate and require a little less pressure than red switches, so you don't have to press down quite as hard. And I think the switches in conjunction with the very good dampening, so it certainly doesn't really rattle or shake when you're typing quickly. It just creates a consistent, satisfying sound. It's one of the better pre-built kits that's starting to put more attention and detail into places that matter. So here's a quick demo of how it works if you are paired with a phone using Bluetooth. So we can say hello world, and you can tell that overall it is a pretty responsive experience, fast and responsive experience, not too much lag or delay thanks to the use of Bluetooth 5.0. So everything that you type here for the most part will pop along here without really any keys getting missed, even if you're rapidly typing. All right, so that's more or less it as far as our hands-on review of the Helloganss 75% wireless mechanical keyboard. Due to the internal parts that they've chosen, it's one of the most satisfying typing experiences I've tried yet at a $100 pre-built keyboard, similarly rivaling the Mojo 84, but this one I think just has a slightly more discreet appearance, plus the benefits of having two more customizable controls, which you are missing on pretty much all the other options on the market. So overall presents itself, I think, as an attractive option that is quite versatile, giving you all the controls that you would possibly want out of a compact mechanical keyboard. You can check out more details if you're interested in the links down below, but for now that's been our video. Thanks for watching here at OS Reviews. That's been the Helloganss HS75